I recently asked you to send in questions for me to answer on today's video, and you guys definitely delivered. So, without any further ado, let's dive into them. Here's a question for you, JT. I would love to hear your Pokemon story. Tell us how Pokemon came into your life. Well, that's actually a great question. You see, Pokemon has been part of my life since it came out in America back in 1996. My mother decided to buy me a Game Boy Color with Pokemon Blue version in it, and little did she know she was going to give me an addiction that has lasted until present day. When did you get into Pokemon, and what's your favorite main series game? Well, since I already answered the first half of that, let's dive into the second part. I would say my favorite main series game would have to be Pokemon Emerald. I really love that game. For starters, I love Rayquaza, and the fact that that was like the legendary for that box art and everything, I fell in love. But also there was the Battle Frontier in there as well. I mean, it was just a really, really good game. And they also had like a mini cutscene in it, which I think is like the first time they ever had one of those cutscenes in a Pokemon game. So yeah, it's got a special place in my heart. I really like Emerald. Do you still remember what Pokemon was your first shiny and your first Hundo? Well, that's an easy one. Both of them were Magikarp. My first ever Hundo that I had in this game period that I know of is a Magikarp, and that was also my first shiny, because at the time, that was the only shiny in Pokemon Go, and I grinded really hard for that thing, and then I finally got it, and it felt really good, because that took forever to get. How many Shundos do you have? Well, I've got currently 7 of them, and I'm pretty happy with every single one of them. Most of them are Community Day ones, though I did incense this one, which was huge. This was my first shiny of Gibblecom Day, and it was off the incense, which was insane. And you know what? I always felt dumb for never powering this thing up. So you know what? This one is also going to be level 50 right now. This is probably tied with my Shundo Kyogre, though, in terms of, you know, my favorite out of all of them, because this is one of my favorite legendaries for sure, and with the Primal coming out, I'm very excited about it. But yeah, it's definitely tied between the Shundo Kyogre and my incensed Garchomp on which one's my favorite. Do you ever feel burnt out playing Pokemon Go? How do you recover from that? Well, to be fully honest with you, yes, I have felt burnt out playing this game a few times, because, you know, after, I would say, about 5+ years of playing this game, of course you're gonna feel a little burnout, but to be fully honest with you as well, I just really love this game to the point of I use it as a fitness app. It's a good reason to go out and just explore, go to other countries sometimes when it comes to live events and stuff like that, and also hanging out with friends. Like, this app is more therapeutic to me than it is something that I feel, you know, that I have to do. And this is my job, you know, YouTube is my full-time job, so I do have to play Pokemon Go pretty much consistently, but luckily, the game has more positive than it does negative, but if I ever, you know, do feel burnt out, usually what I do is I just put the game away for a little bit, you know, watch a movie or something like that, chat with some friends, you know, trying to work through whatever I'm feeling at the moment, and then usually I feel pretty good about coming back pretty soon, so luckily I don't feel burnt out too often, but when I do, I just take a small break. I would love to know how much you walk in a week. Your shiny collection is so amazing. Also had the best water event, 2 shiny Lapras from 11 checks. Well, congratulations on your shinies. That's freaking awesome, especially in 11 checks. That's great. But as for how much I walk in a week, unfortunately, I don't really have a solid number for that. Usually I try to aim for over 100 kilometers every week through Adventure Sync, though I will sadly say, due to all the travel from Spain and all that, we only hit 99.8, so that hurts a little bit. But usually I try to aim for over 100 kilometers, but it also just depends on what the event is. You know, if I'm really motivated to go out and grind, then it's usually a really high number. And if it's kind of like a kind of boring week, sometimes I try to at least hit 50, but I rarely get to that point. Usually it's over 100 kilometers. Do you like ham sandwiches? Yeah. They're pretty good. What made you want to start making YouTube videos? I've wanted to do YouTube for a very, very long time, ever since I was like in middle school, you know. I've really wanted to do YouTube, but I never really knew what to do it on, you know. At the time, I was playing things like Halo, you know, I was watching Machinimas, Rooster Teeth, you know, John Schron, Egoraptor. There's so many like YouTubers I could talk about that I used to watch and still do somewhat, but yeah, they were big inspirations that I really wanted to just try it out and see if I could do it. And luckily, it turns out I can do it pretty decently, so I'm really happy about that. But yeah, it's been something that I've wanted to do for just the longest time, and I'm glad I'm actually doing it now. What was your first Pokemon? My first Pokemon in Pokemon Go was a Bulbasaur, but don't ask to see it. That thing's been made candy long ago. When you started your Pokemon Go journey, why did you choose Team Valor? Was there a reason behind it? Great question. You see, back when Pokemon Go first came out and the teams were announced, we didn't have legendary Pokemon, and we had no idea how it was gonna work. You know, were we just going to be able to catch them eventually? Were they going to be gifted to us for some reason? We had no clue. So So I chose Valor because the initial rumor was whatever team you chose was what bird you were going to be able to get. And out of all of them, I kind of wanted Moltres because I felt like Moltres was going to be pretty decent. And this is before we knew anything about like the in-game stats and stuff like that. I was just purely going off of, I kind of like the fire chicken a lot, so let's just go with the fire chicken. And I'm happy being on Valor, to be honest with you. What did you live in Europe for? So earlier in my life, I lived in Germany for about 4 to 5 years, which was really nice. And then later for my high school years, I lived in the UK for another about 4 years as well. And the reason why I was in Europe was because my mother works for the United States government, and she was deployed over there to work. So I had to go with her, being her child. And it was definitely a great opportunity. I mean, both countries were fantastic. And a really cool tip for you guys that want to travel a lot is if you work for the United States government and they send you overseas, they pay for your housing, which is a pretty huge thing. Like, doesn't matter how big the place is, apparently. They will pay for it more than likely. And you can just use that extra bit of money to travel around Europe or anywhere close by because, you know, you have a lot of extra spending money. So I had the opportunity to see a lot of really cool places because of that. And I'm very thankful for it because it kind of gave me the little travel bug so I could keep going around and trying to explore and see new things. What's your favorite thing about Pokemon Go and why? I would say my favorite thing about Pokemon Go is definitely the community aspect of it. There's no other game that's quite like this one where you can literally go out and see other people and play the game while exploring together. Like, you know, you can kind of have that with other video games where you're sitting on the couch and you're chatting with somebody through the headset, but it's different in terms of like the Safari Zones and GoFest and stuff like that. Like, a ton of people are going to this concert-like event all for the same reason, to play a game and like compare what they got and see like what everybody's getting. Like, it's just really cool for that aspect, and no other game really has that, so that's why I fell in love with Pokemon Go. Is your hair a natural color or is it dyed? This is all natural gray. I mostly blame it on math and stress. But in all seriousness, my father had very, very silvery white hair, so that's why it's like this. I've been getting gray hair since I was like 13, and it used to bother me, but now it's grown on me a bit. Do you have family that plays Pogo? Nope. Every one of them seems pretty resistant to it. I have no idea why. If you had only one request for Niantic, which they are obligated to change / add to Pokemon Go, what would it be? Breeding. I really think that breeding would be an amazing addition to Pokemon Go because it is part of the main Pokemon series to breed your Pokemon to try to get better ones or shiny ones and stuff like that. I think that would be a fantastic addition. That would be good for players and good for Niantic, because if a player is trying to get a specific Pokemon out of an egg and they're willing to buy a ton of incubators, I'm sure that Niantic won't mind that. So hopefully in the future we'll get breeding in this game because I think breeding would be fantastic. If Pokemon Go was killed off, what game would you move to? By the way, love your vids, keep it up. Well, thank you very much, but getting to your question, I have no idea. Maybe a main series Pokemon game like Violet and Scarlet are coming out. I would definitely think to stick to Pokemon for a little bit and probably try to branch out to other things, but I'm hoping it doesn't happen soon because I'm really enjoying the Pokemon Go journey, but you never know with these things. Hi, I personally don't spoof, but what's your opinion on spoofing and spoofers? Well, I don't like spoofing at all. I think it defeats the purpose of the game completely. And as for spoofers, I mean, I don't really have an opinion on the people that do it. You know, like, if you choose to do it, you do you. You play the game however you want to, but if you get caught and you get banned, tough. I will be in Florida in the month of August, and I need to know an area where I can find Heracross and Corsola. Any help would be appreciated. Big fan of your content. Thank you very much. And if you want to find Heracross, you have to be below the 29th parallel, or south of Deltona, Florida, is where you will find Heracrosses all over the state. If you're above that, like in Daytona or Jacksonville or anything like that, you're going to be getting yourself Tauroses, but if you're in Orlando or anywhere south of that, you're going to get yourself Heracross. They're very common. And as for Corsola, I believe they're all over the state. Problem is that they're slightly more rare comparatively to Heracross, so good luck, hopefully you find them. And try to come in when there isn't an event happening. Like this Water Festival event pretty much killed off regional spawns pretty heavily. Like, I was in Spain and I couldn't find a red flower flabebe and I was there for at least 6 days. So yeah, sometimes the events kill off regional spawns, so if you're gonna try to get a regional specifically, come in after an event or before an event actually happens. That's the best time. Have you ever heard of the hit mobile game Among Us? No, what's that? What's your favorite regional form of any Pokemon? Personally, I really love Galarian Obstagoon, and its shiny is fantastic. It's just a really good design. I love it quite a bit. Have you ever wanted to just smash your phone because of Pokemon Go? Sometimes. Do you have a driver's license? Why do we never see you drive? No, I don't have a driver's license, and that's for a few different reasons. The first reason being, It's a cost that I don't really think I need right now, because I know that I could basically get to where I need to go by walking, and that leads into the second part, is that I'm a lazy person. If I had the ability to take advantage of a car like that, I would definitely abuse it like crazy, and would definitely be playing this game, which I shouldn't be doing like that. So that's another big reason why I don't have a car. And the third reason is, I've been in a few accidents to where I don't really want to be driving a car right now. I know it's something that I need to tackle eventually and get to, because I'm not always going to be in a place where walking is the best option, but for now, it's just not something I really need or want, so I'm just not going to do it. What would you do if YouTube wasn't around? Probably cry. My kids and I would like to know what you're listening to on your red earpiece. Music? Podcast? Friends calling? Well, a combination of those things for sure. Mostly podcasts and also phone calls with friends, though it is a little sad that most of the time while I'm playing the game, I have to hang up on them so I can do a clip on the phone, and then I'll call them right back. And sometimes I call them like 20 times a day, which luckily they don't seem to mind much about, because they understand I'm doing this for my job, but at the same time, I feel a little bad. What made you want to quit your job and do this full time? What are the advantages and disadvantages of not having a regular job? How do you figure your budget? Well, for starters, the pandemic is a big reason why I quit my job at Target to go full time on YouTube, because at the time I was living with my grandparents, and my grandfather has a bit of a respiratory issue, and he was afraid I was gonna get it from working at a retail store and bring it back to him, and if he got it, more than likely it would have been pretty bad for him. So he asked me if I needed the job at Target, and I said no. I have YouTube, I could try to make it work on there, and luckily it has worked out, so that's great. As for the advantages and disadvantages, I would say the advantage is I am in control of my schedule 100%, but that's also the downside of you have to plan everything out. You know, nothing is done for you. There's also some taxes things that you have to take care of on your own, as opposed to something that the business, you know, usually takes care of for you when you're working for them. So there's a few things there. And as for a budget, I'm working on it. I'm still not the best when it comes down to budgeting, but I am getting slightly better at it. But when it comes down to budgeting, there's a lot I still need to learn. Where all have you traveled to play Pokemon Go? So I've played Pokemon Go in a few places, all over the United States, not completely all over, but a few places for sure. I've been in the UK, Spain recently, also Japan, Canada, and I know Singapore, and I think that's, no, and some of the Caribbean and Mexico for sure. So I've been in a few places for sure, but there would be a lot of places I'd love to go to. You know, like Korea apparently is really good, specifically South Korea. I hear it's not so great a little further up north, but South Korea I hear is pretty nice. And also, I would really like to play in like old cities like in Greece. I would love to go to Greece and do that. And also India, I think would be really fun to play Pokemon Go in. So there's a few places I would really like to go, but as for the places I have been to, they've been pretty great for it. Would you ever travel to New Zealand to play Pokemon Go? Yeah, I've actually really wanted to go to New Zealand for a very long time, and you guys have Relicanth, which is cool, and if ever that shiny comes out and I don't get it from raids or however they choose to release it, I would definitely come to New Zealand. Plus, New Zealand's like the best place to make content because you guys get that stuff way earlier than everybody else, so I might pop over there sometime soon. For more in-person events in the future, what places would you love to see? I would really love to go to Australia. It's been on my bucket list for a very, very long time, ever since I was really young. I've always wanted to go to Australia, so if they could do a Safari Zone or a Go Fest in Australia, I would love to go. How are you doing today? Great, thanks for asking. If you don't mind, how much did you weigh before you started playing Pokemon Go? Before Pokemon Go, I weighed about 276 pounds, and I was not doing well in life. But luckily, due to Pokemon Go, I was able to lose over 100 of that and got down to 174, which is great. But right now, I'm back in the 200s, but we're slowly working on that. What is your favorite location you've traveled to specifically for Pokemon Go? My favorite spot has to be Tokyo, Japan. I mean, the spawns were amazing, the Pokestops were everywhere, there was tons of gyms everywhere, and one of my favorite things is this was before remote raiding even came out. When you find a raid here in Florida, you kind of have to be in just as it hatches, or you're not going to be able to do that raid. Again, this is before remote raiding when you could invite people, so you had to be like there or you weren't going to get it. But in Japan, literally 4 minutes left on a lobby, and there would be 20-man lobbies for the raid. It was insane. So yeah, that's one reason why I love Japan. And also, it's the birthplace of Pokemon, so they have a little extra going on around there with a ton more sponsored stops and stuff like that. So yeah, Tokyo, Japan is just too good for Pokemon Go. And that's all the questions I'm gonna be able to get to in this video. There was a ton more, but we just ran out of time. But don't worry, I plan on doing more of these videos because I'm really enjoying them. And if you enjoyed it as well, please smash the like button for me, show me some love, subscribe to the channel, hit the little bell icon so you know when I upload. Links for Patreon and merch are in the description box below, but with that being said, this is the end of the video. I'll see you in the next one.